Hey guys, and happy April 1st, where I get to do some stupid shit and not get bitched at about it as much. I do stupid shit all year, so let's be real. I know I haven't finished last year's What If Universe 6 and 7 were 1, however, the response to the latest part has put me off it for a little bit, so for now, I'm gonna add a new one to the roster. Don't worry, I will finish it, and like I said, I want to do something stupid, more stupid than normal. Also, my year has been hella crazy, so I haven't had much time to do as many what ifs as I would want. But that doesn't mean I don't want to approach another what if. So let's get into this craziness, since, you know, 'tis the season. Oh, by the way, this idea came from a late night call between myself and two friends, who gave me the premise, I wrote the story, so you know, if you don't like it, blame them. But if you love the story and really into it, you know, thanks. I worked really hard on it. Anyway, let's get going. So, our story begins not long after the events of the Demon King Piccolo arc. The great ruler Pilaf is angry. Over the span of a few short years, he has been stopped in his efforts for world domination multiple times. Even worse, he was made to help someone else conquer the planet. He thinks back on all of his losses and can't help but realise that the young child Goku was involved in all of his problems recently. From stealing the Dragon Balls, to from stealing your wish, to fighting off that Demon King. Every time this young boy gets in his way, he wondered what made the kid so special. Was it the tail? Was it the girl he was travelling with? As he slowly ponders deeper and deeper into thought, he soon comes across the fact that the boy was incredibly strong for someone his age, and the kid could literally fire lasers out of his hands. Pilaf wants to fire laser out of his hands, but he doesn't know how to acquire that power, so he spends another few days thinking, remembering that the kid was actually a martial artist, having trained over many years. Pilaf wonders, if he was to train himself, could he too shoot lasers out of his hands? And if so, how strong could he become? Could he become strong enough to defeat Goku? Could he become strong enough to take over the world? Grasp it by force, and rule it as its one true ruler? But where does he begin training? He hasn't ever worked out in his life. How do you improve upon perfection? He ponders to himself. But he remembers hearing about someone called Muten Roshi, from that Demon King guy. Someone who was strong enough that it made him scared. That's interesting, and he wonders if that man could train him up. So now he just needs to find the old man. But how? He'll just have to scout the planet, and maybe you can get lucky with some Dragon Balls along the way. As for Shu and Mai, they have been worried about Pilaf, who has slowly been falling deeper and deeper into thought over the span of a month as he ponders to himself, muttering only a few words every now and again, talking about lasers a lot. It was really concerning to them. They try what they can to make him feel better, but the man just stays quiet and mumbly, until one day he announces that they will become the world's greatest martial artists. This catches them off guard, as Pilaf explains that they will learn to fight like that child who stopped them all those years ago, and maybe they could be able to steal the Dragon Balls right from under them. Heck, maybe they won't even need the Dragon Balls. Maybe they can just bust into the King of the World's office and sit in their rightful place. Hearing this, Shu and Mai are hyped up. They want to do this. They can take over the world like they want, and they think it's at least worth giving a try, but they ask how they're going to learn. Pilaf reminding them of the old man that fought Piccolo, and both of their faces light up, as the two ask that, where can they find him? That's brilliant! As Pilaf explains he truly has no idea. He plans to search the planet though, in hopes of finding him. The pair aren't thrilled of the idea of just searching aimlessly around the world, but they do agree to do as their boss said, as they head off, searching around the planet. After a few months of searching, they strike gold, coming across a small island in the middle of the sea, where the old man lives. Roshi, having sensed 3 people approaching his island, came out to inspect what was going on, and is shocked to see the Pilaf gang. As he asks what they are here for, Pilaf explains how he wishes to become a student of the old turtle, and he wants to become a martial artist, like no other, and won't leave until Roshi trains him. The old man scoffs at the idea, saying that he has no interest in training him. The man's old, and his older students were much more talented than Pilaf ever was. Pilaf is annoyed and calls out for his team to show up, with Shu and Mai jumping out of their pod. And at the sight of Mai, Roshi quickly has a change of heart. He explains how he misspoke. He will happily train the group. Deep down, Roshi knows that training them might be a bad idea. However, Mai's a pretty decent looking girl, and he will at least entertain the idea for a few days. I'm sure they'll eventually give up. After all, they're not that determined. But in case they do take this seriously, he can sense the evil inside of them. So he decides that he's going to try and beat that out of them. That's his goal for now. So, over the next few months, he puts the trio through some similar training to what he did to Goku and Krillin, but these three struggle at it a lot more than they did. It takes them a long time to even get a fraction used to it, and every time they make a small bit of progress, Roshi makes the training harder. They want to give up into the first week, but thanks to Pilaf being quite a determined man, he pushes his friends through, and they continue to work. Roshi's very impressed at how much they were willing to stick it out, and once seeing that they weren't leaving easily, Roshi decides that he has to actually train them and convert them to the light side. So, that's what he starts doing. Over the next few weeks, he starts talking to Pilaf to try and drop his whole goal of world domination, slightly, but Pilaf is hard to get through. He doesn't care what Roshi has to say if it doesn't involve training or food. So, Roshi takes a different approach. He sees how connected Pilaf and Shu and Mai all are. He wonders if Pilaf, having fallen back on these two a lot for support, would change if those two were to change. So Roshi starts slyly speaking to Shu and Mai a little bit more in private. He first approaches Shu. The dog ninja is actually a very calm dude who just wants to learn everything Roshi can teach him. He's really into this whole martial arts thing, and he even shares a small bit of Roshi's pervy personality, so they have something to connect through. As Roshi slowly starts to convert him, he learns of his loyalty to Pilaf, and also learns how much of a skilled physical fighter Shu is. It's probably thanks to years of using a sword, so Roshi, being a teacher, helps the dog learn how to channel ki into his weapon. It's something Roshi has never done personally, but conceptually, he kind of gets what he's doing. It takes Shu a while to do it, but he loves learning about it. He almost has a lightsaber, he thinks that's awesome. So, over the span of a few months, Roshi converts Shu to the light side. Next up is Mai. She finds the old man really annoying. His perverted antics and his harsh training really annoy her. But there are moments when Roshi and her do connect, when he isn't being a pervert and Roshi's genuinely being a teacher. Roshi learns of Mai's fiery nature, but deep down she's quite gentle and caring. She wants to defend her friends, that's all she ever wanted, but she's never been strong enough to do so. So Roshi fans that flame and uses it to slowly turn her to his side, and over time it works. During these times of connecting, Roshi learns how good of a shot Mai is. She's a brilliant shot and can hit an opponent miles away. So he starts encouraging her to use her great shooting with her ki, teaching her smaller variations of ki blast, and even helping her invent her own variation under Kamehameha. At some point he even pulls in Launch to help her improve her shooting. Both women get on incredibly well, and it terrifies Roshi deep down. These two could definitely put a bullet in a few good places before he could react. After a few months of converting the other two, Roshi decides it's time to tackle Pilaf, his biggest hurdle yet. And immediately Roshi learns of how smart Pilaf is. This man can figure things out very quick, and he doesn't waste any time coming up with a plan. Whether it's a scheme to make some money, or a way to cheat in training, Pilaf is probably one of the smartest people Roshi has ever trained. The man is incredibly smart. He figures things out really fast. Whether it's pulling a scheme to skip out on training, or make a couple of bucks whenever they're in town, or even steal food from under someone's nose, Pilaf is incredibly smart, and Roshi wants to hone that brain for combat. And slowly, over time, Roshi does so. It's a long process, but even Pilaf doesn't pick up on it. Roshi does it very slightly. And over this time, Roshi learns a few things about Pilaf. The man is determined. When he sets his eyes on something, he will go for it, regardless of the odds. Taking over the planet's a stretch, but Pilaf gave it a go, and Roshi commends the man for it. He has a good bit of determination. He's just worried that if Pilaf is to lose after all of this training he's put in, all of the work, that maybe it will uninspire him. So he hopes that he can keep that desire there for Pilaf. He's grown to like him. Alongside this, Roshi found something weird about Pilaf. There's this feeling, this bubbling sense within Pilaf. Roshi can't really recognise it, and it feels like almost a great something laying inside of him, waiting to explode. It only really started to show its head near the end of their training, but once it did, Roshi took a great interest in it, and he wonders what potential Pilaf could have. He wonders if it has something to do with his weird human DNA, because Pilaf isn't a normal human like Mai, and he's not a beast man. In fact, Roshi doesn't know what Pilaf is. He never thought to ask, but there's something special about it. But for now, he needs to test out his students. After working his way up through the group, Roshi realises that he's not had a chance to test his students' capabilities. Over time, he had managed to slowly change Pilaf and the other two's perspective on their power. At first, they wanted it just to conquer the planet and call themselves the rulers. However, over time, Roshi managed to mould it slightly. It's not what he wanted, but it's definitely an improvement upon what it was. The trio now just want revenge on those who had made a fool out of them. And more importantly, they want revenge on Son Goku. They want to kill him. It's a pure hatred at the moment. Roshi knows that this is not ideal, and he even warns them that it's not the path he wants them to go down. However, having not seen Goku in a while and knows what happens when the boy sets his heart to training, he believes that Goku might be able to finish the rest of this journey for them, and hopefully convert them fully to the light. He knows Goku's capable of it, and this will be his final send-off for his best pupil. So, when the idea of the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai coming around, Roshi forces his 3 students to enter. At first, they're a bit against it, but once they arrive, the gang are kind of down and uninterested. So, the group show up on the day of the 23rd Tenkaichi Budokai, in tow with Roshi and Bulma. At first, Bulma found it weird seeing the group, and she immediately gets on the defensive. However, Roshi tells her not to worry, they are fine. Seeing the girl again does make Pilaf want some revenge on her. However, with the old man present it will be hard, so he decides he'll wait for his chance later. Goku's reintroduction is much like canon. However, much like Bulma, he is untrusting of the Pilaf gang from the get-go. He's more willing to give them a chance than she was. However, at sight of the gang, he's skeptical. And with Pilaf and the others, they freeze up, mostly out of fear. But for Pilaf, he's very angry looking at him. They want revenge. He wants to defeat Son Goku. And whether he has to defeat him in a tournament or kill him out back, he will do it. Slowly, over time, the rest of the Z-Fighters show up, and they find themselves having to make some sort of uncomfortable small talk with the evil gang, who try to somewhat exchange pleasantries. After all, Roshi has somewhat changed them. However, Pilaf refuses to speak to Goku, just sits there, burning a hole in his head, using his eyes. Goku can feel this, and is just a bit confused at why Pilaf hates him so much. After all, Pilaf was the bad guy. But anyway, the tournament begins, and at first, the trio find themselves very lucky, for they are up against a few weak people who are nowhere near their strength. Pilaf, Mai and Shu are so impressed with their power, they're hardly having to try to beat these martial artists, as they breeze through some of the easier knockout rounds, eventually arriving up against one of our heroes. But unluckily for them, they are nowhere near the strength they need to make it. Mai loses to Chi-Chi, but it's a very close match. Mai almost wins using her Kamehameha variant she calls the Machine Gun Fire, a weak variation that pelts multiple bolts of the Kamehameha towards their opponent. The smaller blasts do pack a punch, and can almost concuss you. But Mai still loses thanks to Chi-Chi being a stronger fighter and having spent more time training as a warrior. As for Shu, he loses against Yamcha. The two share a fair battle, but Yamcha has way more years of training and tournament experience on Shu. But it was a fair close match, and Shu can't help respect Yamcha a little bit. After all, his main move is called the Wolf Fang Fist. Come on, Shu's gonna love that. As for Pilaf, he makes it one round before the quarterfinals, but he matches up against Goku. The demon's slightly excited. He wants to kill the man, but he can't, so he settles for destroying his pride. As the battle begins, Goku is interested to see what sort of strength Pilaf has. After all, he's seen it somewhat from the sides throughout the entire tournament. So for now, Goku holds back a lot of his true power, only really kicking a little bit above the demon, just to see what he can do. As Pilaf uses everything Roshi had taught him and more to try and get the upper hand on Goku. He uses fast speed, uses quick movements, he fires off a Kamehameha at some point. However, Goku is still so far ahead for Pilaf. While Pilaf is speeding around the arena, Goku's following him with his eyes quite casually. As when Pilaf fires off a Kamehameha, Goku's caught off guard for a few seconds, but manages to block it away with one hand. Goku's power is much that above Pilaf's. Pilaf and Goku clash for a few minutes. Goku praises Pilaf for all the ground he had made training. However, he apologises, but this year it's his tournament and he wants to win. As Goku knocks Pilaf out of the arena, causing the small demon to hit the wall behind him and curse at the world. After 2 years of training, Goku was still far too much. He will never be able to get his revenge on him. But Goku, who was really impressed in what Pilaf displayed, steps down, telling Pilaf he's a really good fighter and hopes they can battle again in the future. Pilaf doesn't hear this as a compliment. He hears it as taunting. As he stands up, with Shu and Mai trying to comfort their boss, they leave the arena, having fully lost. The trio leave annoyed. They can't believe it. Once again they were foiled by that kid. This is over and over again. Even after they spent 2 years training, they couldn't catch up to him. It's stupid, it's pointless, why are they doing this? And they want to give up altogether. Martial arts has been a huge waste of time, and they can't believe they wasted years of their life doing this. They should just go back to doing it. They should go back to trying to conquer the world and being evil once again. On their way out of the tournament grounds, they come across their master, who asks how far they all made it. Learning that they didn't qualify, he tells them that he apologises. Pilaf screams that Roshi's training wasn't enough, and they hate everything they were put through, and how they give up with martial arts. They're never going to do it again. It was a complete waste of their life, and he's a stupid old man for believing in them. He never wants to see his face again. And Pilaf and the gang are going to go back to what they used to. They're going to go back to trying to conquer this world, getting the Dragon Balls and getting their revenge their own way. Roshi sits silent for a moment before telling them to follow him. Confused, Roshi gets pretty stern and almost demands they follow him. They go to put up a fight, but Roshi really makes it clear that he is not listening to them and they need to follow him. So, the group quiet down and follow Roshi. Leading them back to the tournament arena, the group are annoyed they have to watch the matches and try to leave, but Roshi tells them to sit down and truly watch the battles. As the tournament, for the most part, plays out like normal. Goku is engaged to Chi-Chi, Krillin puts up a good fight against Piccolo, all of this. Things up to Goku and Tien's battle were like normal. Goku wins this battle, and this is where Roshi turns to his students, explaining that every fighter they had just watched had spent 4 times the amount of time training than they had, and they expected to win this entire tournament. That's stupid. Goku had been training since he was a boy, and it's probably the same for Tien, with people like Krillin, Chi-Chi and Yamcha having been trained since they were very young themselves. But yet the Pilaf gang believed they should be able to hold a candle to them. They should be impressed with themselves for doing as well as they did. The group hearing this hung their heads low. I suppose it was optimistic for them to believe they could win, and they almost did enjoy all of this training they were doing. They were salty they lost. They believed they were the strongest, even though they had spent nowhere near as much time training as the people in front of them had. Roshi goes on to say, "But the fact you managed to put up a fight against some of the greatest martial artists this planet may have ever seen is something you should be proud of. And believe me, if you keep training, one day you might very well catch up, or even surpass those you lost to today." Hearing this, the group look up, seeing Goku and Piccolo's match well underway. The fight is lightning fast, and they can hardly keep up to it. It's incredible the power the people in front of them are displaying, and maybe one day they could be that strong. The group hearing this are amazed in how much Roshi trusts them. At first, he would hardly speak to them and train them properly. Now, they almost have a master-student relationship fully. Roshi, having seen the passion in them reignite to get their revenge, he tells them that the way to get strongest is to travel the world and grow at their own pace, use everything he had taught them. All they can do now is improve on themselves. Remember to eat well, rest well, play well, and train well. So the trio do just that. Heading out into the world, they want to improve, so they can fully get their revenge, and maybe one day rule the world. They've defooled that old man. It's still there slightly, however, it's not as much as a passion as they once had it. For now, it's almost a side mission. They don't know if they want to ever achieve it. Pilaf still makes out like he does, but for now, their goal is to grow as strong as Goku. So, they head off and go on to train. The rest of the tournament goes on like normal, and the events after play out mostly the same. Now for the Pilaf gang, they decide to take on what Roshi recommended. They begin to travel the world, doing things to make cash as they go wherever it is they want to. They set up fights to win a bit of extra money. Sometimes they do a small bit of robbery, but nothing major as they continue training on and off. They aren't consistent, but they keep trying at it, and they are seeing some small growth over time. But they are determined, and they keep at it, as they just spend their time mostly enjoying life for probably the first time in a while. They can make money easy, they're travelling the world, and that lust to be world's ruler is all but gone in Pilaf. He just now wants revenge, and that's what he tries for. It's a thirst for him. They spend some of their time even looking for Goku, and once they find his home, they begin Pilaf's plan, called the Great Assassination of the World's Strongest. Trying to kill Goku over the span of multiple months, whether it's through an ambush attack, through traps they set up, they try everything, but Goku's too strong. He easily defeats them every time, and just leaves them to rest afterwards. They would disappear for a few weeks and then reappear, trying again, but lose. It's disheartening for a few days, but then they train and try again.
At least near the start. As time goes on, subconsciously they start to see it more and more like training. They refuse to admit it, but this is fun. They're testing themselves against a strong opponent, and they're getting better each time. Yes, Goku's improving, but so are they. Maybe one day they will be able to beat him. Over with Goku's perspective, he sees it as sparring. They're keeping him on his toes, laying out spike traps, almost hitting him with logs, trying to swing swords at him. It's fun, and he has a good time doing it, to the point where he uses Chi-Chi as a training partner, just to get some more benefits from the time training. And over time, both himself and Chi-Chi see some very minor growth, but there's also a slight change for Gohan, who is introduced to the idea of martial arts a little early. He doesn't really care for it, but he has some idea. Instead of having a power level of 1, he's probably rocking a power level of like 9, which is, a small improvement. As for the Pilaf gang, once Gohan is up and walking, they stop setting traps. They're worried that Gohan will get hurt, but they don't know why they're worried about the kid. It's the spawn of Goku. Why should they care? And they can't seem to reason it to themselves, but they stop attacking him. It bums Goku out, but he assumes there must be a good reason.
So they leave Mount Paozu, and leave Goku and Chi-Chi to lead out their lives with Gohan.
They still want revenge, but they don't want an innocent child getting hurt, so for now they'll leave until Gohan's a bit older, then they can truly get their revenge.
However, things will take a change in the next arc, in the Raditz arc, but for now, that's where I'm leaving this part. Sorry this bit's a bit wacky and whatnot, but I thought it was fun, and I hope everyone enjoyed. With that being said, let me know if you enjoyed, with a like and a comment, and I'll speak to you all next time. Have a good day or a good night.